This weekend on Currents News, the stories of the summer transforming our country and our church. A pro-life win half a century in the making. Roe v. Wade overturned, a victory for the unborn. Christ in the streets, it's just what the doctor ordered, a Eucharistic revival to heal the United States. Then, milestone moments for the first church on Long Island.
Catholics had to take the Fulton Street ferry across the East River to attend Sunday Mass.
St. James celebrates 200 years in Brooklyn. And what's summer without America's favorite pastime, the showdown between collars and scholars. The season's almost over, but this special edition of Currents News is just beginning. With this special edition of the news. It's been a summer to remember, filled with stories that affected Catholics in the Diocese of Brooklyn and across the nation. This weekend, we are taking a look back at all of those milestone moments. The biggest one for the faithful, the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in June. The landmark decision sparked nationwide protests among pro-abortion supporters, and it was a historic win for the church. Hugs and cheers from pro-life supporters in front of the Supreme Court after hearing Roe v. Wade was overturned.
I've been fighting my entire adult life for this day. It is one important victory. It's not the end, but we are dancing on the grave of Roe versus Wade.
The justices voted 6-3 to uphold a Mississippi law that bans abortions after 15 weeks, and in doing so, overruled the nearly 50-year precedent. Justice Samuel Alito wrote, "The Constitution makes no reference to abortion, and no such right is implicitly protected by any constitutional provision."
This is a moment 50 years in the making. Millions and millions of innocent human beings were lost because of the Roe versus Wade decision, and I'm so glad that the justices actually established the justice and the rule of law in this land, and that so many millions of lives will be saved by this decision.
Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan called the decision encouraging. In a letter to the faithful, he wrote, "Today's decision corrects the crucial errors of Roe v. Wade and accompanying cases that have prevented our elected representatives from enacting even modest legal protections for the unborn." But not everyone agrees. Pro-abortion supporters also converged on the Supreme Court, as they have for weeks since a draft opinion showing the justices were moving in this direction was leaked. Homeland Security says that led to an increase in violent threats from pro-abortion rights extremists. It also led to a number of attacks on pro-life centers across the country. The White House says President Joe Biden denounces any acts of violence, although he hasn't addressed it himself. He did, however, speak out, calling it a sad day for the court and for the country.
Now, with Roe gone, let's be very clear. The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk.
Despite the ruling, pro-life experts said the fight to protect life in post-Roe America still soldiers on. New York State is considered the abortion capital of the nation, and following the decision, it doubled down on protecting the procedure. The New York State Catholic Conference is offering women alternatives to abortions, trying to help desperate moms choose life. I spoke with Kristen Curran, the director of government relations for the conference, about what those alternatives might be.
Well, certainly, the first things, of course, that come to mind are adoption and things like that. So those are things that we always talk about as great alternatives and things that we like to support women in making that choice. And then obviously another alternative is women carrying their pregnancies to term and giving birth to their babies. But of course, women need help and resources to do that.
The New York State Catholic Conference has called on elected officials to stop promoting abortion and focus instead on true support for women, children, and families. But bishops in New York know that abortions will probably never be fully banned in the Empire State. They said so in a joint statement made about a month ahead of the ruling. But they also sent a message to moms in need. In that statement, "We will not abandon you." They made a pledge that any woman, regardless of beliefs or situation, can come to the Catholic Church and get the services and supports she needs to carry her baby to term. There are a number of resources available in the Diocese of Brooklyn if you are a mom in need. There are currently 2 pregnancy centers, the Life Center of New York on 5th Avenue in Brooklyn and the Bridge to Life in College Point, Queens. In terms of housing options for young mothers with children, there are actually 5 options. 3 Providence houses, 1 on Church Avenue in Brooklyn, 1 on Prospect Avenue, Brooklyn, and 1 in Jamaica, Queens. There's also 2 more Brooklyn centers, the Rose Kennedy Family Center on Halsey Street and Bethany House on Sidham Street. The bishops also launched a resources page so moms and pregnant women can get help wherever they are in New York. Just go to nyscatholic.org/help for moms, and you can find a pro-life center by you. There's also a statewide map that directs you to local Catholic parishes that have ministries available to serve mothers in need. Catholics also spent part of their summer processing their faith. Parishioners took to the streets of Brooklyn and Queens and around the country for the Feast of Corpus Christi, the nationwide kickoff to the Eucharistic Revival, a campaign to remind Catholics of Jesus Christ's presence in the sacrament. And that belief was on full display in the Diocese of Brooklyn. From the music after Mass to the sounds of the subway, parishioners at St. Sebastian's in Woodside took to the streets to share their love of Jesus. The pastor, Father Patrick West, led the procession through the Queens neighborhood on the Feast of Corpus Christi, holding the monstrance carrying the Blessed Sacrament high for all to see, a reminder that Jesus Christ is alive and walks among us. Processions like this took place all over the Diocese of Brooklyn, from Blessed Trinity Parish in Rockaway, where parishioners stopped to pray at a sidewalk altar, to Our Lady of Angels in Bay Ridge, where a storefront stop drew the attention of community members, to St. Joseph's in Astoria, where children tossed rose petals in the street. Bishop Robert Brennan was also in Astoria at Most Precious Blood, where he processed around the block after celebrating Corpus Christi Mass.
It's the feast of the church. It's the story of the church.
And Bishop Brennan says the Eucharist is the heart and soul of it. But this feast day comes at a time when, according to a Pew Research study, nearly 2/3 of Catholics don't believe the bread and wine used at Mass become the body and blood of Jesus. Because of that, on Corpus Christi Sunday, the U.S. bishops launched the National Eucharistic Revival. Father Carlos Velasquez is helping guide the revival in the Diocese of Brooklyn.
The whole revival is about us learning more about what the Eucharist is, to re-evangelize ourselves and to get us more on fire.
And to help reignite that passion, Bishop Robert Brennan released a video message to the faithful of Brooklyn, encouraging them to take part in the national campaign.
Please pray for this endeavor. Pray that this time of grace and renewal might be an opportunity for us really to jumpstart and reignite maybe the flame of faith and appreciation for what the Lord Jesus gives us in the Eucharist. Secondly, I invite you to take note of and participate in the different events and the offerings during the course of this year. Some things will be at your local parish, others in deaneries or geographical areas, and then others on a diocesan level. Special gatherings of Holy Mass, moments for Eucharistic adoration. Take advantage of the moments for Eucharistic adoration already available, and maybe some of the new moments that will be added on.
It's not just Bishop Brennan calling on the faithful. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops is inviting all dioceses to sponsor activities at the parish level between now and the National Eucharistic Congress, which will be held 3 years from now in Indiana. Again, the USCCB is inviting all of the faithful across the country to take part. For more information and to learn how to get involved, just visit their website at eucharisticrevival.org. Now to a procession of a different kind. One summer highlight that is always a memorable one, the Feast of Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Williamsburg. The feast in July attracts thousands as St. Paulinus graces the skyline in the Giglio. It's all about tradition and brute force, but sometimes the biggest might comes from the smallest children.
All right, kids, you ready?
They've been preparing.
Well, I did do a couple push-ups with friends.
And they've been praying.
I hope we don't drop it. And I hope we go far.
Dozens of children in Brooklyn flexing their muscles.
It's gonna be really heavy.
Getting ready to lift the 400-pound children's Giglio at the Our Lady of Mount Carmel feast in Williamsburg.
I'm gonna be in a capo, I'm gonna lead the Giglio.
So with the support of their families,
I am tickled pink tonight. I really and truly, it's the best thing.
A blessing from Monsignor Jamie.
Heavenly Father, we come together tonight to lift this children's Giglio.
And a scapular of Our Lady of Mount Carmel around their necks.
You're gonna wear this when you lift.
It was time. Like pros and like their fathers and grandfathers before them, the children made the Giglio dance as they processed through the feast. And when the work was done, the fun began with games.
Good job.
Rides.
Going on the rides.
You like going on the rides? What about the food?
Yes.
And oh yes, the food.
Lucy hot, Lucy sweet.
Lucy says she has the best.
Because I'm around for close to 50 years. So if I'm around this long, you know it's gotta be good.
And after 135 years, this parish perfected the recipe for a good time by bringing our faith onto the streets. Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan also took part. He went to the feast and called it a great way of professing our love for God.
Celebrate our faith, and we hear the message of the Lord in the gospel to love God with everything we have and to love our neighbor as ourselves. God bless you.
Of course, Bishop Brennan also participated in the Giglio lift, but even though he didn't roll up his sleeves and carry the 4-ton, 72-foot tall tower, he did get to ride on top during the much-loved night lift. Italian pride was also on full display in Bensonhurst this summer as 18th Avenue came alive for the Feast of Santa Rosalia. The 11-night festival in August featured live band performances, rides, and carnival games, all in honor of Saint Rosalia, the patron saint of Palermo. The faithful marked the end of the festivities with a procession from the chapel of Santa Rosalia to St. Dominic's Church, where they concluded with a special mass. So much fun. There's a lot more news headed your way, including another celebration in Brooklyn. St. James Cathedral Basilica has been celebrating the Eucharist for 2 centuries. We'll take you to the 200th anniversary Mass. Plus, the name of a beloved late priest in Queens will never be forgotten, how the community honored him. And it once was lost, but now it's found. The amazing story of a statue that was missing for 50 years. There was a huge celebration this summer to mark 2 centuries of history at the Cathedral Basilica of St. James. The 200th anniversary in August culminated with a mass attended by the faithful from all over. And they celebrated the Eucharist just the way it's been done since the doors first opened. For 2 centuries, bishops and priests have processed up to the altar at St. James in Brooklyn.
Today's celebration marks an important moment for parish life in all of Long Island.
Sunday's Mass celebrated the 200th anniversary of the Cathedral Basilica of St. James, the first church built on Long Island. Before it was established in 1822, the Irish immigrants who lived in Brooklyn had to go to Manhattan to attend Mass.
Catholics had to take the Fulton Street ferry across the East River to attend Sunday Mass. You think crossing the Brooklyn Bridge and getting on the BQE is an adventure. You ain't seen nothing.
Brooklyn Bishop Robert Brennan was joined by Bishop John Barris of Rockville Center and New York Cardinal Timothy Dolan, who was the main celebrant and homilist.
This grand cathedral is evidence of a 2,000-year-old allegiance to the Lord's final mandate, go out to all the world.
The cathedral's storied history ties all three dioceses together.
We feel a special sense of belonging to each of our neighbors, and we appreciate that. We value those ties along with our unity of faith.
And even though the neighborhood surrounding the cathedral has changed over the years, Bishop Brennan says one thing has remained the same.
Much history has passed, and so many changes have taken place, coming and going. But you know, what is constant here is the proclamation of the gospel, the celebration of the Eucharist, and the encounter with God's mercy.
Here's a little more history of the Cathedral Basilica. While it was established in 1822, it was officially designated a cathedral in 1853 when the Diocese of Brooklyn was created. Then in 1982, Pope St. John Paul II added the title of Basilica to its name. A beloved priest in Queens made his mark on New York City this summer. A street in Rosedale was renamed Reverend Andrew L. Struzzari Way. The corner of 137th Road and Brookville Boulevard was dedicated to the former pastor of St. Clair Church. Father Andy spent nearly 50 years of his life living the gospel by reaching out to those in need. Shortly after he passed away from cancer, Catholics and community leaders alike banded together to honor him. His niece, Chiara Montalto Giannini, spoke about what her uncle meant to her.
He really was, we used to say that we were peas in a pod. He had a really great, warm way about him and a really silly sense of humor. And we had a lot of fun, you know. For me to be, you know, have had my life with that example front and center, I feel so blessed and so lucky. I miss him terribly, but I know that he is somewhere in heaven smiling really broadly right now. He loves this.
A memorial fund has been made in Father Andy's name to continue his legacy of helping others. To learn more about it and to make a donation, just go to CatholicFoundationBQ.org/Father Andy. This summer was filled with countless parish anniversaries, but parishioners at Our Lady of Czestochowa and St. Casimir in Brooklyn marked two really big ones. They celebrated both the 125th anniversary of the parish and the 100th anniversary of their church. The big day kicked off with a special mass honoring the church's Polish roots. Founded in 1896, the parish started off as a mission church for Polish immigrants in Brooklyn. It wasn't until 1980 that they merged with the parish family of St. Casimir. But since then, they have continued to serve the Sunset Park community. A statue lost for 50 years has now been found hidden in the basement of a Brooklyn church. This statue of Mary was in honor of 15-year-old Victor Grant, who died tragically during summer camp back in 1967. Victor's mother gave it to the Sisters of St. Joseph at St. Agnes Catholic School in Carroll Gardens after they cared for her and consoled her. But then it went missing for decades. That is, until one of Victor's childhood friends, Bill Gorman, went searching for it. Bill joined us last month to speak about the amazing discovery and why it meant so much.
We went to the same grammar school, and what I remember, I guess, more is the time after his death. At 14, you're not thinking, and certainly that had an effect of a peer dying, but more I do remember Mrs. Grant and how the sisters reached out to her, and she was extremely grateful for that. And they really, I think, as I look back now, got her through it, you know, the loss of her only child.
Unfortunately, Bill says by the time he found the statue, it was already beyond repair, with its hands missing and several serious cracks. However, the church said it will recreate the statue and place it in a garden dedicated to Victor. Still to come on Currents News, Bishop Brennan hits the beach for a service in the sand. We'll take you there. And a St. Francis prep football coach hits the water, why he dove headfirst into a swim in shark-infested waters. This Labor Day weekend, everyone will be flocking to the beach before summer comes to a close. But in August, a parish close to the ocean, Blessed Trinity in Breezy Point, combined the shore and faith by celebrating Mass on the beach.
Do this in memory of me.
The service in the sand, led by Bishop Robert Brennan, celebrated the solemnity of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The Mass included 500 parishioners and the traditional blessing of the waters. Bishop Brennan was especially happy to have the chance to connect with Christ on the coast.
I always used to tell people in Ohio that one of the two things I miss the most are my family and the ocean. And I am thrilled to be back here around the ocean and around these beautiful scenes, especially this late time of summer.
This was the second time Bishop visited Breezy Point, and Bishop will get another beach day soon. He'll celebrate a Mass at Rockaway Beach this Sunday, hosted by the nearby parish of St. Francis de Sales. You can join them. Just be at Beach 129th Street at 9 a.m. on September 4th. Make sure you bring your own beach chair for the liturgy. Bishop Brennan also made it to Coney Island at the start of the summer. He took to the field at Maimonides Park for the return of Catholic Schools Night in June. There, he got to see diocesan clergy face off against school employees in the long-anticipated Scholars versus Collars softball game. After a 2-year hiatus because of COVID, the Scholars were finally able to redeem themselves, winning 9-6. But they weren't the only winners of the night. Some 60 all-star students from Catholic academies and parish schools in the diocese were also honored.
And it's most importantly about them and their hard work throughout the year, and all the students in the diocese working hard for a successful school year. So it's a great opportunity to be back, to be with them, to celebrate them, and also for the principals and a number of priests and bishops of the diocese to be together.
And of course, after the big game, there was another game. The Brooklyn Cyclones took on the Jersey Blue Claws. The event is sponsored by DeSales Media Group, the parent company of Currents News. More recently, Bishop Brennan was spotted at a different ballpark. He went to a Mets game and spent some quality time with some Brooklyn seminarians. 24 new and returning seminarians from Cathedral Seminary House of Formation in Douglaston joined Bishop Brennan at Citi Field last weekend. They returned last Saturday evening to begin their orientation, and then they enjoyed Sunday morning Mass and brunch with the bishop before heading off to the game. The bishop also stopped by Dunwoody to speak to 66 future priests at St. Joseph's Seminary. It's a part of an annual retreat that includes seminarians from Brooklyn, the Archdiocese of New York, and the Diocese of Rockville Center. The 17 Brooklyn seminarians had the opportunity to ask Bishop Brennan questions and get advice as they continue their formation. And finally, it was an unforgettable summer moment for a football coach from St. Francis Prep. He actually swam in shark-infested waters, all to raise money for his school. Coach Rich Carroll swam 2 miles from Alcatraz Prison in San Francisco. The football coach completed the swim in just under an hour and managed to raise close to $15,000. The money went toward a portable scoreboard at the high school. I spoke to Coach Carroll about that moment he finished the swim and the hardest part of the challenge.
Getting through the end and climbing up the beach to get through the finish line, there was just the crowd of people. It was really just an amazing experience. Manipulating your sights of where you're headed is very tough with the currents. You have to really sight way ahead of yourself to know that the current is going to be in effect. So targeting your exit from the water was really one of the toughest things. The current just had such a strong pull, and really caused a lot of problems for just your regular swimmer, let alone people who were experts at the swim.
St. Francis Prep's football team will have their first game on Saturday, September 10th against Holy Trinity High School. And not to be biased, but as a Prep graduate, I wish them luck. And that's it for this special edition of Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.